So, what we're going I have skipped it forward a little tiny bit, but we're going to have a little look and see how this goes from here.
So, I want to go back to where we were before on how we can move forward from this.
Mhm.
Why not take, there's a few things that I think are obstacles to that. You have this issue with you and Nick. You
Yeah.
have this issue between you guys and a large chunk of the community.
Yeah.
And you guys have this issue between you and Vic.
Mhm.
And I think at least two of those can be worked on and have a huge impact on this whole thing.
Mhm.
And, ones that don't involve the lawsuit. So obviously you really can't do much with Vic right now. But I think you could.
I'll ask for
So if he dropped his stuff right now, would you guys not ask for your fees?
I can't.
That's just a question. You don't have to.
Pretend this isn't our lawsuit. Let's do it that way. Pretend it's not our. Pretend it's like
a hypothetical lawsuit.
If Joe Schmo could make that decision today, this was never about money for Joe Schmo. Absolutely, we would not. Joe Schmo would not. It would be cool. Let's go.
So it would be.
I don't believe him. I really don't believe him. That little freak out I just had, I just backed out of a page I was recording as well, and it's just kind of messed up. That's why I freaked. But yeah, I do not believe that Ron would say, yeah, don't worry about the money, this, that, and the other. Again, no. Like I said in the last issue regarding this, he seems to talk about money a hell of a lot. He does. And he seems to be the kind of person that literally, right, I'm successful, I don't care, as long as I got more money than you. That's what it seems to be with him, and that seems to be the type of person that he is. But I personally do not think if Vic said, right, okay, I'm going to cancel this, we don't need to do this, we'll just get on with our lives, this and the other, I'll get more help, whatever. And Ron saying, yeah, I'll drop the laws, well, yeah, I'll pay my own bills, don't worry, mate. No. Can you really see all of them saying, oh yeah, I'll pay for my own stuff, don't worry. Even though it's quite a lot, a couple of grand here, a couple of grand there. And like Ron has said, it keeps going up. If they go to the Supreme Court, it's going to cost an arm and a leg around. And you're probably looking way over $1 million.
Kind of game over, everyone takes their punches and payments and we all go home with what we have left kind of thing?
Yeah, Joe Schmo would be fine with that, I'm sure. If it was just, hey, let's end this over, let's move on with our lives, and let's continue down the path, maybe Joe Schmo would be 100%. Maybe that was an option before, and who knows what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we go back to
There's a lot of fun information that comes out when all this is over based on what I can say that's going to shock you about that conversation you just asked me. But unfortunately, I have to be quiet. And they're going to, but I've had a glass or two of this, so we'll see.
What I want to know is what exactly was said and happened during mediation. That's what I want to know. We haven't really got any transcripts from that, and we don't even know if anyone put any propositions forward. We don't. All we got is that they're saying, yeah, nothing could come to terms. No one could do it. So it'd be very interesting to see, like, if Ron's saying now, like, oh, this is when this is all over, this is going to come out. Is that going to be the mediation? Or is it going to be something else?
Well, I think there's a way for you to really fix some things here.
Yeah.
And I have a question for you, and you can, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Are you in a position, or do you think you can be in a position to forgive Nick?
If Nick called me today, I would have a conversation with Nick, and all I'd want him to do is apologize for how he spoke about Monica. He can talk about me all he wants, but I feel so bad on the insults he said about her. That woman is one of the most genuine and loving human beings on the planet. I don't like how he spoke about her. Everybody else, I don't give a shit about. He can insult everyone on the planet. If he told me I'm sorry for saying mean things about Monica. Cool, water under the bridge. I think he's funny, and it sucks because I want to hate the guy.
I want to hate the guy? Is this why you don't go on to his shows? Is this why you've only come on to Cress and Mr. Hop's show twice now? A lot of other people you've turned down. You've turned down Nick quite a few times. Why don't you reach out to Nick then and say that you want to go on his show, have a little chat?
But he's fucking funny, goddammit, and it's annoying.
You can forgive him without needing that apology, though. You don't have to have that to forgive him.
That's true.
You don't need that. That comes back to this.
I'd like it though, thank you, Ken.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's not something that would be.
Can I get a cherry
desirable.
on top?
You can. It's possible.
I love how Mr. Hop and Cress are just like, yeah. You know, there's just no reaction whatsoever. And you could tell that they're thinking, their minds are like, right, okay, we need to think of something now, because the way Ron's acting, everyone else in here is like, right, we're talking, and there's Ron now going, oh yeah, whatever. Almost like the drunk at the party. You know, like the uncle that you would always get drunk. That's Ron.
Possible, but
Yeah.
if you come back to the basis of it, forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about you. It's about you taking control back. And
You're right.
and it's what I've seen is there's this desire for control of others.
Yeah.
I think you can have the desire for control of yourself, and being able to say, Nick, I know you said horrible shit about me and about my fiance and about other people in my lives, but that's okay. I forgive you for that, and I'm moving on from that, and I'm not going to let that hit me. You know, does it suck getting hit with a bunch of insults and jokes? Yeah, it can definitely get to you. But again, it comes back to, you know, how do we figure that out? You know, one thing I dealt with in middle and high school was bullying. I had so many different nicknames. And one of the things I learned to do was move past that. And that was extremely hard. I got to the point where when someone would insult me or my family, I would insult my family with them. Like if someone said, your mom's a whore, I'd be like, oh, I know that for a fact. I saw her down on the corner last night.
Yeah.
And it took away that power from them and it gave it back to me. I had control of how I felt. You can do the same thing. You don't have to let, you know, if you look at it as a zero-sum game,
right?
You know, the more you desire that apology, the more control Nick would have over you. Whereas, you know, and I don't like, it's called like a parent-child thing.
With that, Nick could actually use that to his advantage, you know. He could be like, I'm not going to give him the apology, fuck him, fuck that, you know, I don't care. And then he could just go on and carry on about saying the things he has said about Monica.
Oh,
where one person over the other, you want like an adult thing where we're working together mutually. Would you ever be open? So you said you'd be open to talking to Nick. Would you be open to talking to Nick on like a stream or something?
Absolutely.
And say, like, say moderated, so either Crumb or myself or someone.
Yeah.
And the goal is to come in and figure that shit out.
Could be
absolutely.
Good.
Like I would literally.
Everyone comes in genuine though.
Yeah.
That's the
I've been genuine to all of you guys. I do the same with Nick. You know what I mean? Like, this is how I am just in general. Like, and do you want to know something, Ken? Like,
what's up?
I talk about like progression. You did say some things and some stuff that made me really start thinking, and I got a book that is my next on the list.
What's that?
The Courage to be Disliked. It's something I'm working on. Because I know it's a weakness in my game, and it is something that is convicting my heart even as you speak. It's like, why can't I forgive him without it? And it's like, it's something that I'm working on, man.
And
but yeah,
I'm glad that you are.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you are working on stuff.
I listen to people, and it's like I'm okay with criticism, and that's part of growing and being a human. Let me just shock everybody and let them know I'm going to fuck up again. And I'm going to be great sometimes. But it is what it is. People tell me to look at certain facets of my life and get better at. Cool. Let me do it. Let me be intentional with it and not just say I'm going to do something and be a lazy fuck and not do anything.
Okay. So I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, I will reach out to Nick after the stream ends, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
see if he's up for something like that. And I guess we can do the logistics. I know Chrome has your contact and everything,
Yeah.
so she can do that
Could be
side of
good.
it.
Absolutely.
So I'll put a pin in that for now, but I think that would be fun. And like
Yeah.
I said, I'll be happy to, if you want me there or not, I can
Sure.
come and try and keep things tame. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to pick sides here. Like I
He
said
can
on
do
next
as
stream,
rough
I
as
might
he
poke fun at you for certain things, but
You know what I mean? I'm okay with like confrontation, and people don't have to treat me with kid gloves. Like if they have hard questions, there's some hard shit out there that's they have the right to ask me, and it's like I'll answer as what I can, and I won't answer what I can't. But he doesn't.
so
Anybody doesn't have to feel like they have to treat it like they're on eggshells. Just shoot it straight.
let me ask you a hard question then.
Sure.
What of all the things I pointed out in my different things, which one hit you the most?
The psychopathy situation, because there's some stuff that I've worked through in my past that it hit a chord.
Do you
Because I
mind
don't
going into that, or
you're evaluating it based on those things.
well, it was not so much psychopathy, more sociopathy.
That right,
Psychopathy has the more control to it,
right.
and sociopathy is the more, you know, it's very mixed, and like I said, it was a hard thing to do because, a lot of times the psychopathy, you don't have the like stability in jobs. There's a lot of times job switching, so it's very rare to see someone who's like stable, is able to maintain a job, and
Yeah.
being able to do that. So like I said, it was a hard analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
do
I'm
you feel
Irish.
as though those things kind of still impact you today, or do you feel as though maybe that was a big thing before, but maybe it's creeping back up or something? Like, because if
So
it hits you,
yeah. Continue what you're saying. Sorry to interrupt you.
no, I was saying, if that was something that hits you, is that something where you're worried about it resurfacing, or is it resurfacing and you're trying to keep it down?
Always, and that's the part where it's just being honest with yourself. And my opinion and how my progression has been is to never, in my way, is to always remember the work and what the work has been. So I know that there's always a progression of trying to get to be better. So yeah, it bothered me because I know that back then, and even now, sometimes there's been moments where I'm like, holy shit, if people, that is bad. It's not, it sounds crazy, but I know the heart behind it. And that's why it was bothersome to me, because it is something that I'm intent on working on. And literally in my office, I have on my disc profile, it talks about the things for me to be aware of. And with my profile, which I'll email it to you, Chris, it says that when cornered, I can use aggression and these things because it is something that has haunted me. I don't want to be remembered as this Irish guy who used anger and aggression to get my way. I don't want that to be my legacy. And it sucks that my natural disposition is to be aggressive. I hate that aspect about myself. I want to be patient. I want to be caring and understanding. And so it's something I'm intent on working on. So it's a reminder of my past and how far I still have to go to be even better. And that's why it bothered me.
Okay. Anything else bother you, or was that the big one?
That was it, man.
Okay. So there's something that I think someone pointed out in the chat, or something I've also observed too, is where do you take responsibility for all the things that have happened in the last 16 months? Do you take responsibility for anything?
All of it. It's all, everything is me.
Well, what is you though? What is you and what isn't
Yeah,
you?
be more specific.
All of my tweets are my tweets. All of the stuff that I say is my tweets, and or anything I say is me. So obviously, anything that anybody would have to say negatively, I have to take ownership of, and pay the cost. Whether it's people losing trust in me or looking at me in a negative sense, that's on me, and that's where it's like trying to be better and working on it. And sometimes I mess up, and sometimes I don't want to give people the certain things of myself, but anything that I've done that it might have hurt somebody, it sucks, but it is what it is at this point. I can only work on getting better in the future. But
So do you think you hurt Vic?
I'm sure he was hurt by some of the stuff I said.
How bad do you, if you had to guess, how bad
Yeah,
would you
how
say?
bad?
I wouldn't know the scale, but I'm sure he was affected by it.
Okay. So with that, I think there's, a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say that my mind's running on a few different things right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to kind of focus back to one. I see there's a lot of kind of conflict within yourself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it came out in your responses to me. And that's one of the things I pointed out in my long analysis is, that desire to go back to aggression and I don't want to say violence, but, those kind of things. And, where on this platform, you're pretty cordial. You've been upset a little bit, but when it comes to a different means of communication, things change. It goes back. It turns on and off. And I don't know if that's just the means of communication. Communication's, 80% of how you say it.
Right.
And, the actual words themselves are a small portion of that.
Right.
And I feel, from what I'm seeing is that flip flop is where my concern was, is because you'll say one thing and do another. And that's where that's where my thoughts were.
Yeah.
You're not, that change may not have happened is because that constant flip flop is there.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say you haven't. You probably have made a significant amount of change versus where you were 8 years ago.
I will, if you knew me, you would know that is 100% a fair statement. Yes.
And I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that you've made change, obviously.
Yeah.
Now,
there's a lot of way to go.
And that is true. And so I want to go down a really difficult road. Yeah. And I'm going to do, I use this as an example with people, more adults than anything, because it's really hard to teach it to kids. But I have the personal belief that if you're confident in your beliefs on something, that you should be able to argue the opposing side perfectly, or almost perfectly. So if, say I personally believe that gay people should get married, I should be able to give a very thorough argument for why gay people shouldn't get married and do it the way that it should be laid out and be able to argue against that.
Sure.
With that, there are several different things that have happened along the course of the way that maybe that would be something to explore. Try and make up the argument for where is maybe Nick or Ty coming up with a good argument for what was happened. Where are they coming from? Think about the other side of it. And with that in mind, I want to ask again a really hard question. How would you feel if the statements Monica has made about Vic weren't completely true?
I mean, if they weren't completely true, then, it would be disappointing, but, I would be disappointed, I guess, if they weren't true.
He's there like, well, I would be disappointed. Me, I'd be bloody fuming, I would. I'd be literally like, I can't believe you lied about this. I can't believe you said this about someone. And, oh, itchy nose. I would literally be livid. I'd be like, you destroyed a man. This happened. Look what he's gone through. And here's him, oh yeah, I'd be disappointed.
Well, it's had a long downstream effect, though, if that were to be the case.
I mean, if we were to look at it as an isolate, if she was the only person who had ever said anything, that would be true. But that's where I keep going back to it's like this is a term in the lawsuit, death by 1,000 cuts, not by us, but by Vic himself. So would I be upset about the one of the 1,000 cuts? I mean, it would be upsetting, but that's where in the situation where I'm in this, why we fought so hard is we know in that situation what the truth was for her. You know what I mean? And so, while to answer your question with a genuine answer, it would be upsetting if she had made that up. You know,
I mean, it would have cost you $300,000.
the money for me is never about anything. Like that part of
It
it.
cost you mental health for age 16, 17.
That would be the more part that would suck, but it's over. Like I don't cry about spilt milk or anything like that. Like that part would suck. It would more about be a bridge of this is an accurate information. So then can I trust you in the future? You know what I mean?
There would be a trust issue there.
Right. And that would be the problem. Because money, it's like, it is what it is. Like money, we can earn more, we can save more, and life's still going. It's the stuff that can't get back, and the breach of trust would be the problem.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm sorry, did someone have input?
No.
Okay, I thought someone starting to say something.
No,
So with
go
that,
ahead.
How do you feel when, like, myself or someone else challenges what Monica's statements are and her recollection of the incident? Like, what does that feel like for you?
You know, a part of it is in the beginning, it was frustrating because I'm like, with my brain, how it works is like logical. It's like, why would somebody risk all of these things if it was a lie? But now I just see it in a completely different light. This far removed is you can form your opinion. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that's just what it is. You know what I mean? You're free to think about the interaction one way or the other, and someone else is, entitled to their thing. But it's just an opinion.
Okay. 1 second. I have to step away for a second. Give me 1 second.
No problem. I'll continue on that discussion there. So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack, and that's a lot to kind of have an answer for right away. But honestly, over the course of this time, like, how have you felt, and how have you, like, kind of reacted, or conversations you've had with Monica about when people come out with things that directly contradict some of the stuff that she's talked about?
So everything that she's talked about that people think directly contradict it is coming from people who don't know what the situation. So for instance, like they mentioned, oh, there's no balconies or patios. And then that was proven that there are in those places, but people don't want to admit that still. And then they point to Stan Dolan, who still owes my fucking fiance money, you little piece of shit, from your shit ass convention in Hawaii. Hope you see this, you asshole. Side note. So they say, oh, Stan Dolan discredits your statement. Well, he puts her in the room. So then what discredits it? And then Vic, in his takedown letter, admits that he kissed her. And there was in his opinion, a consensual thing. So at what element of the discussion has been disproven outside of a difference in opinion of how the actions were interpreted by each party? Because she's in the room, Vic puts her in the room, Vic admits to kissing her, and so now the only quibble is, was it consensual or not? And that
he said, she said, that's all this is going to be forever. I say it all the bloody time. No one is ever going to know what's happened. No one is.
That's the part that's interesting in this situation is you're free to have an opinion. Monica has an opinion, and that's where we are. You know what I mean? But to say that the situation didn't happen at all is no longer anything that anyone can stand by, because that part has been established that she was in the room, there was a kiss. Now, was it consensual? She says it wasn't, and he's saying it was. So then,
and that's something that's a kind of a fact-finding question, right?
Well, that's where we're leading into this, and that's where, when he doesn't come out and emphatically from the beginning deny something and leaves open interpretation to the event, that's where the fact-finding is now no longer a situation, because now the fact-finding stops because someone admits that it was there and that it happened. So he can't, it becomes a fact finding if someone says, no, I absolutely wasn't in the room and I didn't do this at all, blah, 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 blah. I never kissed her ever in the history of my life. Then it becomes a fact finding situation.
At that point, I think the action here is the accusation of Vic forcing himself on Monica, and I think that in itself needs to be a fact finding question, because they need to sit down in front of, in my opinion, in front of a jury. They need to hear Vic's side of things. They need to hear Monica's side of things. They need to have the evidence portrayed to them, the arguments put out, and then they can make a decision on who's telling the truth there. Because right now, it's he said, she said, and like you've said it before, like he said, she said doesn't win in court.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it's like when you're looking at this, there's only two people that know what happened for real.
Exactly.
Right, and they both can say one side of something that's going to make them look better, but at the end of the day, and again, purely unfair on my part, but I've already said where I stand in the situation. Monica was still friendly with him for many years after. Monica still acted as if nothing happened for many years after. So,
couple of weeks after, well, before all this happened, she sent a tweet out saying, "Oh, I had a great time with Vic, blah, 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 at the Dragon Ball premiere." We got her on camera saying, on the actual premiere, the red carpet of Dragon Ball Broly, she's there going, "Oh, I love Vic, I love him to bits."
From my perspective as a layman looking into the situation, that discredits a bit more of her side of things in terms of that.
And a lot of victims suffer from that. Because there is a situation where you want to give someone the opportunity to be a better person, especially if you feel like it might be an isolated incident. But then with additional information, when all this came out and you start to see, for instance, we showed 17 or so affidavits from people, and people can believe what they want, but more people came forward and put in information that will come out eventually. So then you're like, okay, this is new information. And
you really got to discredit one of the affidavits for sure. And that is of LJ Montello, because again, medically diagnosed, paranoid schizophrenic, and in any lawsuit, suing, whatever, any case, they are automatically wiped from the system because they're classed as paranoid schizophrenic, they could be making something up. And when you see this sort of thing now, look, again, he said, she said, and maybe it was an isolated incident, but according to Ron earlier on, he said, "Oh, people have been knowing about this for years, for decades." So, if Monica thought that was an isolated incident, what about all the years beforehand?
A lot of it was coming to us before the lawsuit was filed.
Did she not care that it was because it wasn't her and all the previous times, but because it was her now, she's like, "Oh yeah, whatever." If that's the case, she should automatically be as guilty as Vic is, if all this is true, because she's allowed it to happen. She knew about it, but she didn't care until it happened to her.
Filed. And so then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I thought this incident was isolated, and it obviously wasn't. And a lot of victims end up getting that situation where they feel like their situation was isolated, it was just them and blah, blah, blah. And then it goes on and then they find out more and more people were affected. And it's like, wait a second, something is going on here.
So, but at that point, it's like I've been in that situation. Like I don't know about my abuser and subsequent abuses, but I've been in that situation, and I understand. And there's guilt behind that, but that's something that I have to deal with, right? I can't go back. I can't retroactively go 20 years later and say they did this to me, and then absolve myself. No, I'm assuming here is a two-part. I can't go back and say that and then absolve myself of not coming forward to begin with, because that was my choice at the time to not go forward, to not cause waves, to not whatever else. And to be fair, and this is something completely, again, not fair for me to say to Monica. And if Monica does decide to come on, I'll say it straight to her as well. It was her decision to continue her relationship with Vic, to continue enabling that behavior if that was the case, et cetera, et cetera. So for that to last that long, and then for her to only speak up after she heard about subsequent stories,
Mhm.
that it doesn't absolve her of guilt for the whole time that she kept it quiet.
And that's part of why survivors stay quiet, and for instance why you've stayed quiet. It's that feeling of, well, what should I have spoke up sooner, right? And the guilt part of that is something that abusers depend on so that the people don't come forward. You are not guilty of a single account of another person's actions. So your abuser, you could call them out right now. Who's to say you can't?
Well, the point is, it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to change what happened.
Sure, but what
It's
if,
not going to change the fact that it had possibly gone on for many years. But my point here is that Monica had the chance to, and
Right.
she chose to not do that. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I didn't choose to speak up because I was fearful. I did not want anything to do with this person anymore.
Right.
I wanted to put that situation behind me. Now, I don't know what Monica's mindset was back then. I don't know what it is now. Like, I'd love to have a conversation with her about it eventually. But the fact of the matter is, it's like she made a decision one way or the other to not talk about it for whatever reasons it was justified, because they're 100% justified no matter what reason it was. But the fact of the matter is, it's that it wasn't, for me, it wasn't out of fear. It was because I don't want anything to do with the situation anymore. I'm basically cutting my losses, saying that's it, I'm gone. And then I'm willfully carrying the burden of guilt that because I didn't speak up, if they went on to abuse other people, then that was something I could have prevented. That's something I have to live with, and I choose to live with that. And like, it doesn't matter how many people tell me that it's not my responsibility. It's something that I still take ownership of.
Yeah.
Because that's something that helps me work through it, and that's something that helps me get past it. And like, I'm really hoping that like, there might be a situation here, and like, I understand that you believe the situation, and I don't think that you're lying. I think that you believe in what you're saying, 100%. But there is a possibility here, like Ken had been saying, there is a possibility that the situation that you have been told was not 100% truthful.
Okay.
I think Ken's back.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been back for a little bit. I had a small thing. There's a little bit of bad weather in the area. My spouse let me know that. So sorry for that.
No worries.
So I did hear a good bit of your reply to that, Ron.
But in that situation, say the same thing starts happening, right? Say you're an abuser. All of a sudden, all these people come out that says this person who abused you did X, Y, and Z. And there's multiple people that come out, right? That say your abuser did this to them. You know your abuser did something to you. Other people come forward, say tomorrow, and say your abuser did this. And then imagine a lot of people calling them a liar. And the abuse that, say, your abuser did to you was exactly the way it happened to them. And you see, and they're your close friends. And say people are calling them liars and accusing them. How would you feel in that situation, thinking that maybe right now you have the idea that maybe it was just you, but what if you learned that your abuser didn't stop at you and it was a bunch of people, and then they were calling liars? Now you are in a dilemma of, do I speak up knowing that people are going to ask me, why didn't I speak up sooner? Or do you stay silent? What would you do in that situation?
Honestly, it's because I didn't take the actions needed. I don't have any evidence. I can't back up my statements. So me coming forward would be empty. It would be hollow. It would be doing more damage. It would honestly be throwing more fuel on the fire. Potentially, people could believe me,
right?
But that would be irresponsible,
right? But that's totally up for you to decide. But say you did say, you know what, I'm going to say this because I believe it. Would you be wrong to say that something happened to you?
Well, I think part of the issues that a lot of people have is, let's for a second, I will assume at face value everything, against Vic is true.
Yeah,
right?
can put hypothetical
So-
in. Joe Schmo,
So
we
for
did it.
this moment, I'll do that.
Mm.
Where I think a lot of people take a problem with this is the way things allegedly happened versus the way they have been characterized
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
yourself and others involved in this. I don't want to say movement against him, but the people who have spoken out against him, what the statements are versus what has been said about him are night and day. You know, that doesn't mean his actions weren't wrong, but
Right.
when we're seeing the types of incidents equated to pedophilia, to rape, that's a problem. You know, I know Crumb's dealt with, sexual assault. I've had my own, run-ins with that when I was younger.
Yep.
And
I
you
think
know,
everybody has, including
not
myself.
not to play the I'm offended card, but that's a lot of offense to people who've dealt with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you're seeing, wait, someone who is, say sexually abused, they go, wait, they're saying a hug is just as bad as being raped. Like,
Right.
it comes off
Right.
very, blunt.
But
Yeah.
as a person who's experienced,
Let's see what Ron says about that. Oh, hugging is this. Now this, because we have all seen this come from people on KV. And it'll be interesting to see what Ron thinks about that. He may defend it, he may not. But again, no, a hug is a hug. Like Ken said, here in Europe, well, say in the UK, all my friends, if I haven't seen them for a long time, even if I just saw them this morning, it's always a hug. Always. Because, well, they're my family. But even for people, like when you go to conventions, and let's say my uncle he's in the comics industry and the movie industry, and a lot of people know who he is. And when I've been to conventions and I've been with him, I've helped him and everything else, people have wanted hugs because they're like, you've helped me. Your drawings or your stories or your work, it's helped me in a certain way. It helped me get through this. It helped me get through that. And obviously with that there, you feel emotion straight away. And with that, it's the first reaction is to like give him a hug and say thank you, or like, yeah, we're together, all this kind of thing. But again, no, when you get people who are going on saying, well, a hug's this, it's almost like those are the type of people who just want to cause arguments. Renfamus, Montello, Marsgill, just a few examples of those type of people. The ones who have said all of that, there's photos of Dominique Sky, Monica, Jamie, all these people hugging, kissing fans, And out of everything, again, this kind of goes back to this whole Me Too movement as well. And one of the biggest things regarding that is when you see Keanu Reeves now taking photos or whatever, he's got his arms around, but he's not touching her. You can see. It's like there's the shoulder and there's the hand, like just hovering over. And it's kind of sad that has happened.
sexual assault or any level of abuse, how do you feel? Now, it might not be that to some, but wouldn't it be somewhat level of fair to assume that somebody else might be able to interpret a hug that's not requested as inappropriate? Maybe not illegal, but inappropriate. I don't like
Inappropriate versus sexual.
He just said he doesn't like to be hugged. We've got video footage of him saying, I want a hug. And Monica goes, oh, he wants a hug. Okay. So straight away, that video shows exactly what type of person Ron is. I don't like to be hugged, but we got evidence stating otherwise.
Is where, is it inappropriate if I walk up to a random person and hug them? Maybe, probably. But is it sexual? Probably not.
Yeah, but
I
that's
could walk up to a random person, just hug them, be like, hey, you're really cool, I like you. But it doesn't mean it's a sexual hug. It doesn't mean it's got this underlying bad thing to it. And I think that's where I go back to the culture thing too, is if Vic's culture in hugging and closeness like that is normal, it doesn't it's not sexual, just like kissing on the cheeks in Europe is not sexual. It's considered a polite gesture.
right, but we're not Europe, and I'm not, and I'm Irish, and certain things happen there, and different. That's where this whole gets into the weeds. Is it doesn't excuse the lack of understanding of someone else's boundaries, but it doesn't mean that someone should be crucified. It's just adapt and learn. So that's the part where it's been twisted. I have emphatically said what he did didn't deserve jail, didn't it deserve cops or court. It was something that could justify being terminated, but
So
I mean,
I will ask this just very briefly. To your knowledge, because Monica's not here to ask, to your knowledge, had Monica or even yourself had a conversation with Vic to say, hey, this is not really acceptable anymore. You might want to stop doing this.
yes. I know that I've heard that multiple people have had this conversation with him. And so there have been people that brought this up, that he shouldn't be doing this type.
It'd be interesting to find out the names of those people so we can ask them a few questions regarding it and where they stand on it.
Of behavior.
But you yourself have never either heard of Monica doing it or you yourself doing it.
I have heard of people doing that.
But did Monica or you do it? That was the question.
Me, I've only I've hung out with this guy probably. Jesus, we were in LA together. We were in New York together. We've been to a couple of cons where he was there, but hanging out style, New York and Los Angeles. And then I've seen him a couple of times. And he sent a video for me a long time ago whenever Monica and I got engaged.
I mean, you could have texted him and said, hey, the way you're dealing with this, or you could have called him, left a message, even if you didn't want to talk to him directly.
Yeah.
Hey, the way you're handling this, I think the way you're hugging people or approaching fans is inappropriate. I think you should reconsider that.
I think people
Monica
did.
ever do that?
I know other people have.
Did Monica?
Yes.
She said that directly to him?
Mm-hmm. And
or communicated to him?
Part of the lawsuit that she mentions that she emailed him about that years ago, that it was causing him issues, that he needs to stop his behavior, stop being a deviant at cons and other stuff.
Okay.
And that's why he stresses at conventions that, hey, people are going to say this and this, because people had brought it up to him and he just disregarded it for one way or the other. And that's the part that's been frustrating in this whole thing, is that people have been telling him for a long time he needs to chill out and change and adapt, and he ignored it because he thought he didn't have to listen.
So one thing I have a question for is, so say you're a fan of Vic's, right? Let's role play for a moment. Let's say you're a fan of Vic's. You're waiting in line to go meet him, get a signature or whatever. You observe for an hour or more of how this interaction is going to go down. If I meet you, how do I know what your boundaries are?
Ask.
Okay. Or tell.
Right. It can go both. But I would put the impetus on the adult versus the fan / potential teenager, or, one's 50 something, the other is, let's call him 20. I would put the impetus on the person who's the adult professional versus the other person. That's just my
opinion. On both people, though.
True.
I mean, if I have a problem with people hugging me, say for whatever reason, I don't like being touched because of whatever happened to me in my past. Right. And I'm seeing someone consistently back to back to back give hugs. I think part of my responsibility is to say, look, I know this makes me uncomfortable. I'm sorry if you normally do this. I would appreciate it if you didn't hug me, or hey, can you please not touch me?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think that's fair.
It's nothing personal. Like, it would take a split second to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think a lot of criticism I've seen has come from, is people are going, you're watching for a long time in these lines, people hug, 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 hug. Is it not reasonable to expect the same gesture when you walk up?
And that's the part where it's the beauty of why this is an amazing debate. It is open to the eye of the beholder. And that's the situation in this with a public situation. It is fair to say some of those things, and it is something that could go both ways. But in all of this, we are assuming and forming opinions on how others are doing it. And that's why, where I've said it over and over, it made no sense to file this lawsuit, because in this situation, we're talking about, is it fair? Should the person speak up? Yeah, maybe. But
so is it fair to assume then, because like just keeping on the same topic briefly here, is it fair to assume that by you saying that you've never had this conversation with Vic, et cetera, and you're assuming what his motivations are and what his thought process is, that's not really a fair thing to say, because you've never had a conversation with him about it?
And part of it is, when we talk about fair, that's where I keep getting hung up on the word. It is a right. You're allowed to have an opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion. Whether it's fair or not is irrelevant. It's, do you have the right to have an opinion based on what you've observed? And do I have a right? Now, if I share my opinion, does someone else have the right to sue or not sue? Yes. You have the right. I have the right. Am I willing to pay the consequences? Yes. No. But fair is a hard stance because it involves emotion. And we buy on emotion and justify with logic, right? So in this situation, we bought this lawsuit because of emotion, and we try to justify it with logic. But then when you follow the logic train, it doesn't add up to a conclusion of this made sense, because most of it is based on emotion. What was the interpretation of the event? What did this person feel? Is it fair? None of those things equal a successful lawsuit. It might make you want to file one. I've wanted to file them several times because my feelings got hurt, or I got convicted on certain things that I feel like, oh shit, that might be, but I don't think this person should say this about me because I've done all this work.
Opinion.
But I don't file it because I know I get my ass packed in at court.
Yeah, you would.
And I don't want to do that and spend a ton of money.
Well, and opinions aren't actionable. Absolutely.
They're not.
But when you're talking about like felony level things and saying that this person has committed X felony, that would be crossing the line, would it not?
No one ever said X felony, maybe. But if some
Ron, quite a few other people have accused Vic of being, well, let's just say being taking pleasure towards kids. You know, that's what a lot of them have said. And it's like, that is exactly what Cress is on about.
somebody's saying, hey, this person did this because I know X, Y, and Z, then that's something based on a personal, like for instance, when I say that I know for a fact he did this to my friend and my fiance and 3 of my close personal friends, there's actually more, but I said that over and over because I believe it and still to this day hold fast to it because I know what they told me. And so that's how I form my opinion.
So let me just run this by you really quickly, and I'll let you finish. I'm sorry for interrupting. So for expressing an opinion about something, say like from what I know of this person, I have heard X, Y, and Z about them, so it is my belief that they are capable of A, right? That is an opinion. That's stating an opinion. Do you think that at some point, at any point during this, that like willful or accidental, that you may have said something to the terms of, instead of an opinion statement, that Vic did this, or Vic is guilty of this, instead of what you meant to say was one thing, but you accidentally said it the other way?
No, I think everything I said was exactly the way I meant it and thought. And any time that there was ever any confusion, I cleared it up. And that's all part of the record, especially if anyone ever thought I accused him of a crime or something that was like egregious or a felony or anything like that. I'm like, that's why I've said it over and over. And it's part of the record that I'm like, no, why didn't we go to court? Why didn't we call the cops? Because do you call the cops if someone cuts you off in traffic? Or
some people do.
People doing their phone. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's you just kind of move on from that point. But that's where it's like a big, huge situation. It's like, I'm not going to call the cops when somebody jaywalks. Is it illegal? I don't fucking know. I'm not a cop, but sometimes cops are dickholes and they try to arrest you for it or stop you. But that's where it's like, I don't feel like what he did was something that was a level to the point where you call it, like, from the people that I know, Libby, this one, Monica, no, that is something that's inappropriate. It sucks. That was their decision. Is he going to jail for it? No. And that's why the lawsuit didn't make sense. And I can't speak to everything else that's happened. I can only talk to the things I've mentioned in the lawsuit, and I said it over and over. What he did was, in my opinion, bad. But anybody calling the cops on him? No. Why do people feel like they need to have the cops called on somebody to be able to voice up the fact that somebody did something messed up to them?
We're going to stop it by there. And as you can see, a lot of this now with Ron is he's saying things, then he's backtracking. Saying something, backtracking it. And the way I look at that is, which a lot of people do as well, this guy is, he's trying, well, to be honest, I believe him when he says that he actually believes what he's saying, which is fair enough, that's true, it's up to him. But when Crash brought up about Monica, what if, do you think that she may have lied or whatever? And he was like, oh, it'd be a disappointment, but that's about it. It'd be a bit more than a disappointment. It'd be a hell of a huge thing. But no one will ever know. If you are new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for future updates. And I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.